What's up, guys? Justin here with my waiver wire pickups for NFL Fantasy Football Week 10. And about 95% of you guys that watch are not subscribed, so please quickly click that subscribe button. Let's jump right in with the quarterbacks that I'd be looking to add heading into Week 10. Mac Jones has posted top 16 quarterback performances in back-to-back games, and Brock Purdy looks like he should be able to return next week. He's better than Mac, and the 49ers skill players are getting healthier, while the defense isn't and getting more injured, causing the need to pass. The 49ers do get the Rams next week, so it's not a great matchup, but you should be keeping your eye on Purdy. Justin Fields is coming off the QB 12 performance in his most recent game before his bye, though it wasn't a very good matchup against the Cincinnati Bengals. Fields has been very boomer bust this year, with 4 of his starts resulting in a top 12 quarterback performance, while his other 3 starts were the QB 30 or worse performance. He gets the Browns next week, so a tougher matchup, but if you want to take a big swing, he's an option. I will admit, I was fading J.J. McCarthy heading into Week 9, but he came through against a good Detroit Lions defense, scoring 19 fantasy points. This was good for the QB 12 performance heading into Monday Night Football. Next week, he gets the Baltimore Ravens defense, who were very bad for the first half of the season, but they've been getting healthier lately. He does provide some rushing ability too, which is great for fantasy quarterbacks. Joe Flacco just threw for 470 yards and 4 touchdowns in Week 9. He does have a bye in Week 10, but he gets the Steelers in Week 11, who he just torched a few weeks ago. The Steelers also give up the second most points to the quarterback position. After one down game, Sam Darnold has returned to his MVP form, which is wild to say. He threw for 330 yards and 4 touchdowns on Sunday Night Football, putting on an absolute clinic. And I said a few weeks ago he was even playing like an MVP. And after that performance on Sunday Night Football on national TV, he should be in those conversations a lot more moving forward. Let's move on to the running backs that I'd look to be adding. Devin Singletary is probably the top running back add this week, as he and Tyrone Tracy split touches in Week 9. It seemed like Tracy was going to be the lead back following the Scatterboo injury, but Singletary ran the ball 8 times for 43 yards and caught a couple passes. This backfield might be a headache moving forward. Dylan Sampson could end up as the Browns starting running back in Week 10. Quinshon Judkins went down with an injury in Week 8, and it was reported to be day-to-day, but if he were to miss in Week 10, then Sampson draws a good matchup against the Jets. Bashal Tutin saw a season-high 9 rushing attempts and found the end zone in Week 9, though he wasn't very efficient with those touches. I was hoping for a larger post-bye bump for the rookie, but I don't think that was the case. He is a stash candidate, but not a must-add as of right now. Blake Corum had season highs in rush attempts and rushing yards, though Kyron still had almost double Corum's attempts and yards, but it is evident that they want to get Corum involved. He is a handcuff with some standalone value. Ramondre Stevenson could be back from injury next week, but if he's not, we could see more of Terrell Jennings. Trevion Henderson saw 14 rushing attempts, while Jennings only had 11, and Henderson did have 3 more catches, but Jennings did have the touchdown. Something to monitor if you need running back help, and the Patriots are a good offense, so there should be opportunities to score fantasy points. The last couple running backs I want to talk about are Jerome Ford and Isaiah Davis. They could both benefit from trades. Ford himself has been brought up in trade talks, and maybe he has an increase in value if he gets dealt. And if you've been following my channel, you've known I've been in on Isaiah Davis in the event that Breece Hall gets traded. I would prefer to roster Davis over Ford if given the choice. Jumping over to the wide receiver, and we got a handful of options this week. Darius Slayton is now 2 games removed from a hamstring injury, and he had season highs in targets, catches, and receiving yards. He could be a potential wide receiver 3 or flex option moving forward in a solid Giants offense led by Jackson Dart. Josh Downs is still only owned in under 60% of sleeper leagues, and he's posted 4 straight games of 11 or more fantasy points. A very solid flex option for one of the best offenses in the league, and he's also had 6 catches in 3 of the last 4 games he's played in. And staying in the same offense, Alec Pierce should be rostered as well, as he's coming off a 100-yard performance. He's had 48 or more receiving yards in 4 straight games and has 10 targets in 2 of his last 3. Parker Washington went 8 catches for 90 yards on 9 targets in Week 9. It looks like Travis Hunter may be out for the year, so Parker Washington could be the number 2 pass catcher for the Jaguars. Demario Douglas went off in Week 9 going for 100 yards and a touchdown after Kayshon Boutte left the game with a hamstring injury. If Boutte were to miss extended time, Pop Douglas could be a flex play, especially with a nice schedule in the weeks ahead. If you need wide receiver help, I'd definitely be looking at Douglas. We know that Troy Franklin is a boomer bust player so far this season, but he's actually top 15 in targets. He's had 8 or more targets in the last 3 games and 10 in 2 of the last 3. The catches aren't there yet, but the usage is. And the Broncos get the Raiders next week, who give up the 5th most fantasy points to wide receivers. Trey Tucker is a flex option on a weekly basis, so he should be owned for that fact alone. But if the Raiders were to trade Jacoby Myers, he would become the number 1 wide receiver for them. Now, we know Brock Bowers is the number 1 pass catcher for the Raiders, but Trey Tucker could see his role increase if Myers gets moved. Calvin Austin has seen 6 targets in back-to-back games after missing 2 weeks. He could be a streaming option on a week-to-week basis if you were dealing with buys or injury. Jerry Jeudy's ownership has dipped below 60%, likely due to his lack of productivity and the bye. The Browns have some favorable matchups ahead, so Jeudy could be someone to roster in hopes that the Browns start turning around the passing game moving forward. Torrey Horton is also a boom or bust player, with more booms than busts so far this season, but he's coming off a Sunday night performance where he caught 2 touchdowns and posted 20 fantasy points. He caught 4 passes and played 73% of snaps, which were both season highs. Yes, Cooper Kupp did miss this game, but they might want to get Horton more involved moving forward. And jumping over to tight end, we're going to start this one off with Colston Loveland. He exploded for 6 catches, 118 yards, and 2 touchdowns on Sunday. Cole Kmet has missed the last couple of weeks, and this is resulting in an increased usage for Loveland. This game may have solidified his spot as the number 1 tight end for a good Bears offense. Juwan Johnson seemed to have finished as a top 12 tight end yet again in Week 9, and in a tough matchup too. The Saints get the Panthers next week, who give up the 9th most fantasy points to the tight end position. A solid streaming option once again. Theo Johnson has seen at least 4 targets in 7 of 9 games so far this season, and is on a 6-game streak of 4+ targets. The Giants get the Bears next week, who give up the 10th most fantasy points to tight ends, so Johnson is another streaming option. David Njoku and Harold Fannin should probably be owned too if you need help at tight end. Dylan Gabriel has targeted them each a lot even when they are both healthy, and they get the Jets next week, which is a great matchup. Dalton Schultz has had 6 or more targets in 5 of his last 6 games. He's coming off a 6-catch, 77-yard game, with Davis Mills playing most of the game at quarterback. Stroud may miss again next week, so Schultz could be a top option for Mills. And to wrap it up, let's look at some defenses I would be targeting. The Broncos at home against the Raiders, the Bills at the Dolphins, the Browns at the Jets, the Texans at home versus the Jaguars, and maybe even the Panthers at home against the Saints. Thank you guys for watching this video. Please drop any questions or thoughts in the comments below.